are formidable.
I've waited for this moment.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to return to action June 13th in Orlando, Florida. On the undercard of Jones vs. Carranza 2, reigning WBA Super Flyweight champion Jasmine Artiga will be fighting against an opponent that has yet to be announced on MVP4 live on ESPN. ESPN Plus. Not to be confused with ESPN Linear, that showed the Baumgartner vs. Shin fight and is set to show the Stephanie Hearn vs. Holly Holm rematch. For this one, you've got to have the plus. And I've serious reservations about the distribution of these cards, some happening on Linear, some happening on Plus. It's making it difficult for the boxing fan to have access to watch them. Jasmine Artiga sports a professional record of 15 wins with no losses and 1 draw, 7 recorded knockouts. Last in action in December of last year opposite the ring, Stephanie Silva, who she decisioned over 10 rounds in defense of her title on what wasn't an MVP show. That show was promoted by Amaury Piedra, small local, well-to-do promoter. Whatever arrangement Jasmine Artiga's got with MVP, it allows her to box off platform when the opportunity presents itself. And so she did in her last fight last year, where she boxed 3 times. Once in March, again in August, then again in December. So she's been busy, and she won't have any ring rust to have to shake off. Who's she fighting? We don't know yet. The opponent is not yet registered on BoxRec, but it could be any number of individuals. It could be her mandatory challenger, interim champion Natalie Delgado, who's been interim champion as of July of last year. It could be Natalie. It could be Irma Garcia, who boxed on MVP's last show opposite the ring, a then unbeaten Emma Doolin, who she stopped in, 2 rounds? Could be a unification match. It could be Irma. It could be WBC champion Adelaida Ruiz, who's been champion since November of last year. Maybe it could be her. Maybe it could be recent signee Liana Cruz. Liana Cruz has been trying to get her hands on Jasmine Artiga for some time, due to the fact that Jasmine Artiga was allowed by the WBA to leapfrog over her in their rank standings to fight for the full title. This was some time ago. Even though Liana was ranked ahead of Jasmine, they let Jasmine fight for the belt, and she won it, quote-unquote won it, against Regina Chavez on what was a pro box show that many people thought Regina won. So you can imagine how Liana Cruz feels that Jasmine Artiga was given an opportunity that should have went to her, and on that premise, she's been trying to get Jasmine in the ring ever since. Maybe that's the fight they make for the undercard of Jones versus Carranza. Liana would do wise to take a tune-up fight first, because she's coming off that Achilles tendon injury and the subsequent surgery that she had after that. I don't think she should go right into that fight, but that is a fight that they could make for this undercard. The opponent options range from Liana Cruz to Natalie Delgado to Adelaida Ruiz to Irma Garcia. We know it's not going to be Mizuki Hiruta, it being that Mizuki is fighting on the undercard of Usyk versus Verhoeven against Mai Solomon, so she's not in the running. In case you were wondering. You know, I used to think that Irma Garcia was the weakest link, the weakest champion at this weight, the most beatable, but then she throttled Emma Doolin, and I had to recalibrate my perspectives. Maybe Jasmine is the weakest link. I'd say it's a 50-50 fight between her and Adelaida Ruiz, maybe even against Irma. I think Mizuki Hiruta beats her, and if Liana Cruz can get in 1 or 2 tune-up fights before a Jasmine Artiga fight, she might beat her as well. So we don't yet know who Jasmine is fighting, but I feel like she's a champion on borrowed time. Men's cruiserweight news ahead of this weekend's cruiserweight title fight. David Benavidez believes that Dimitri Bivol will fight him next, ready to drop back down to the light heavyweight division. David Benavidez is less stressed. Without worrying about squeezing down to the light heavyweight limit of 175, Benavidez feels much more comfortable physically and mentally as his fight with WBA, WBO cruiserweight champion Zurdo Ramirez nears. Benavidez believes it would be dumb to abandon the profitable, historically significant championship path he created when he moved up from super middle up to light heavy 2 years ago. The Phoenix native is also confident that Dmitry Bivol will fight him next, assuming Benavidez beats Ramirez on Saturday night at the T-Mobile Arena and Bivol defeats overmatched mandatory challenger Michael Eifert on May 30th at the UMMC Arena in Ekaterinburg, Russia. Bivol, who will fight for the first time since he underwent back surgery in August, could also pursue a rubber match with fellow former undisputed light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev following the Eifert fight.
You can't begrudge Dmitry Bivol potentially fighting Artur for a third time because they do have unfinished business, but at the same time, if he swapped Artur out for the fresher, younger David Benavidez, I don't think anybody would complain, because we already saw Artur and Dmitry fight 2 times. We want to see something new?
Benavidez is still more optimistic about finally facing Bivol than he was when Bivol gave up the WBC light heavyweight title in April of last year. Rather than make a mandated defense against Benavidez, the 29-year-old Benavidez was elevated from interim to full champion once Bivol vacated that title and still owns it, despite the fact that he's moved up 25 pounds to meet Ramirez. I definitely do think he'll fight me, Benavidez told The Ring regarding Bivol. If anybody's really competitive like that, I think it's Bivol. So, I think he wants the fight.
I think the money's gonna be a determining factor. What pays out more money, the rubber match with Artur or the unification with David?
So, I don't think he's not gonna take that fight. I think he's gonna honor that, but we'll see. At the end of the day, I might think something today and something else might happen tomorrow. So, I don't know. We're taking it one fight at a time, Zerto, but definitely, I'm planning on getting Bivol right after Zerto. Benavidez, ranked number 7 on the Ring's pound-for-pound list, also wants to test himself against Beterbiev, the only opponent who has beaten Bivol,
who is ranked at number 5.
I put on a matchmaker hat, Benavidez said, and the only fights I think are not only good for me, but also for the fans in the sport of boxing are Bivol and Beterbiev, and I'm not going to leave that weight class until I get to both of those fights.
Just taking David's comments at face value, he very much needs those fights because between light heavyweight and cruiser, there really aren't that many big names. There are not that many big money fights that people will stand up and pay attention to. He needs Dmitry. He needs Artur.
DraftKings lists Benavidez as a 4-1 favorite over Mexico's Ramirez, a former WBO super middleweight champion who has lost only once to Dmitry Bivol in lopsided fashion. Amazon Prime Video and DAZN will distribute Ramirez versus Benavidez as the main event of a pay-per-view show in the United States, priced at $79.99. The card is included for subscribers of DAZN's Ultimate Plan, which costs $44.99 per month in the US and £24 in the UK.
Becoming a champion at a third weight partially prompted Benavidez's brief move up in weight, as did the marketability of a fight with Ramirez on Cinco de Mayo weekend in Vegas. The Mexican monster would feel unfulfilled, though, if he didn't complete his championship mission against Bivol, who owns the Ring magazine, IBF, WBA, and WBO titles. I've an obligation to myself to go back down, Benavidez said. It'd be dumb, an error on my part, if I don't go back down and try to get those belts. Even if I feel real good right now, there's just too many fights, good fights, to be made at light heavyweight. For me to leave that on the table, at the end of the day, I'm gonna need fights, especially if I'm thinking of fighting for the next 10 years.
Sounds good, but that's what David Benavidez is good at, saying all the right things. Is he really gonna go back down after this?
So right there at 75, I've got 2 or 3 more fights. I can come back up to cruiserweight and maybe go back down. I'm not taking light heavyweight off the table at all. If anything, I'm gonna work even harder to get back down there, to go and win these titles, because that's already something I'm in a position to do, and I don't like to leave things on the table.
Sounds good. But that's what David Benavidez is good at, saying all the right things and saying what sounds good. His body of work, however,
it doesn't blow me away like it does some other people. It doesn't really impress me. I would like for David to prove me wrong. Go down to light heavyweight and have those fights. So it's a little hard for me to believe that you might become a unified champion this weekend to then subject your body to the rigors of a fat camp.
What did I say when David moved up to the light heavyweight division? From the very beginning I said that he wouldn't be there long. Fast forward, he's only had 3 fights there before moving up to cruiser.
And normally in men's boxing, when a guy goes up, they don't then come back down.
The men aren't like the women where they're just shedding water and fat. In moving back down, they're also shedding muscle, which has an adverse effect on performance. And you're telling me that after this weekend, it's a guarantee that David returns to light heavyweight. If he does, he could return compromised.
If he does, he could end up losing the brown belt because the WBO have a rule to where they don't allow any of their champions to hold an alphabet title at another weight.
They often make them choose. If a guy holds a title at light heavyweight and he's got one of their titles at cruiser, they tell the guy, you got to decide where you're going to campaign moving forward. Because if you're going to campaign as a light heavyweight, the title you hold with us at cruiser comes with mandatories if you're not around to satisfy them.
That's why they make fighters choose.
So if I'm so skeptical of David moving down after this weekend, how do I then reconcile all of his talk about it, all of his forward thinking? Well, David has a pay-per-view to sell this weekend, a pay-per-view that a lot of people aren't likely to buy, a fight that for whatever reason a lot of people aren't talking about, so he has to talk about something else, someone else they might be interested in. And when it's not Canelo Alvarez, it's Dimitri, it's Artur.
Because he has a fight to sell. He's got to hook the customers in however he can, so he's trying to, with the promise of bigger, better fights at light heavyweight, but I'm still skeptical.
Tri-State area fanboy and resident loudmouth Jerry Soriano reacted to my previous video by saying, "Oh damn, the slow-mo train wreck continues, and I'm here to watch. Grab the popcorn. I don't think much of him, but I always pick him to win."
He's talking about me picking David to win this weekend's fight, but let me ask you something, Jerry. For all the times that I've picked David to win, who was I supposed to pick to beat him? Caleb Plant, who had already been knocked out by Canelo?
Was I supposed to pick him? Was I supposed to pick David Morrell in his 11 fights, or Demetrius Andrade and his lack of punching power in his mid-30s? You're chastising me for picking David
While criticizing him.
But who was it that I was supposed to pick to beat him? Anthony Yard, who had already been knocked out 2 times?
Who was I supposed to pick, Jerry?
You're trying to devalue my overview of David Benavidez on the premise that I keep picking him to win, but it's because of who he keeps picking for fights.
Because which one of those guys was supposed to beat him? You didn't think those guys were going to beat him, so you get mad at me when I don't either?
Yeah, because he wants me to be wrong, and so far I haven't. I told Jerry, 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago, that David Benavidez's stay at light heavyweight wouldn't last long, just a few fights, and he'd be up at cruiser fighting Zerto before you know it.
Here we are.
Here we are.
He doesn't want me to be right, but so far I have been.
He doesn't get that I told you so moment. When I'm picking David to win the same fights that he is, he doesn't get to brag, he doesn't get to gloat, and that's why he's mad.
But who was it that I was supposed to pick to beat David? The guy that Dimitri Bivol took to school? I don't remember Zerto winning a single round in that Dimitri Bivol fight. So guess what, Jerry? Not only does your boy have to win this weekend, but he's got to look good doing it, because Dimitri did.
He's the one supposed to be a monster, ain't he? So what's wrong with me expecting him to look like one against the guy that Dimitri dominated?
Don't come here crying to me that I am adhering to the expectations that people like you created when you put David on a pedestal. If he's a monster, he better go in there and look like one.
Don't labor, don't languish, and God forbid, don't get knocked down by Zerto Ramirez. You shouldn't struggle. You're a monster. Pedestal that people like you put this guy on, Jerry. You shouldn't be surprised that I'm picking him to win. He is the Mexican monster, after all. Isn't he?
Challenge to you. Jai Opetaia is a guy who his ability way goes past his star power, but the star power has star potential. There is star potential there. So if Dana White is even a quarter of the promoter you guys are claiming he is, Jai Opetaia is the experiment to prove that, and the testing ground to prove that, because Opetaia has all of the ingredients without the glitz and glamour there. So he needs the glitz and glamour brought by a promoter to bring out the proper promotability, marketability, and fights as well to make him look like the monster that he is, because he has already become this monster in the cruiserweight division. So you got to get him these opponents. I think that's why this fight's being made. Billum Smith and Rizicki. You also have to market Opatai. You got to market this fight well and market the winner of this fight well, so that when you make the fight with Opatai, it is a fight that it becomes not just a fight, but a showdown where people want to see if Opatai can overcome and become more and more of a star, because you've sort of built up the winner of this fight as
I very much agree with Paulie Malignaggi's evaluation. It's not based on anything Dana White did in mixed martial arts that you can evaluate his abilities as a promoter, because that's an entirely different sport. It's a different racket with a different framework. Where he's got full hegemonical control in boxing, he's set to get a lot more pushback.
The other day, Lou DiBella, while on the Ariel Helwani show, said that he feels Dana White is a better promoter than Eddie. But up until recently, they weren't promoting the same sport.
So it's not really possible to judge them evenly. When it comes to Matchroom, we don't gauge their ability to promote boxing matches based on what they're doing with darts or snooker. So how could you judge Dana's ability to promote boxing based on MMA?
It's a different sport.
Different everything. It's what Dana White does with Richardson Hitchens, who used to be promoted by Matchroom. It's what he does with Edgar Berlanga, that if he can put those two fighters that used to be promoted by Matchroom and won by Top Rank in a stronger position than they were when they were with them.
Okay, now you're cooking with oil.
Now, it may be difficult to do that with Edgar Berlanga, at least, because he's already been beat 2 times and knocked out once, but Richardson Hitchens is still an unbeaten fighter. Not that long ago, he was an unbeaten champion. So, if you're as good as your build, you should be able to do something with him. You should be able to do something with Jai Opetaia, who is also unbeaten.
Not that long ago, he was an IBF champion too, just like Richardson Hitchens. I would say that
it's the way Paulie says it is. If Dana White is as good a promoter as people say he is, then he should be able to do things for Jai that Matchroom and Tasman fighters weren't able to do.
It's been Jai Opetaia's mission for the longest time to become his division's undisputed champion, and he is no closer now at Zuffa to doing that than he was at Matchroom. If anything, he's further away, because he doesn't have his IBF title anymore.
So how do you fix it? If you're Dana White and you're as good a promoter as people say you are, you get the World Boxing Council on the horn, and you get their cruiserweight champion Noel Mikhailian on the horn, and you throw some money at him to have a fight with Jai. If Jai lost his alphabet title, get him another one.
If you're as good as they say you are.
The other day, Mauricio Suleiman, when talking to Akin Barak, said that he would be willing to work with Zuffa Boxing and Dana White, smooth things over, but it's up to Dana White to do the smoothing. It's up to Dana White to get Jai Opetaia back on the path to undisputed, because when they signed him, that's what they said they were going to help him do. And since then, all they've gotten him is the inaugural Zuffa belt that costed him his real one, the one he needs for undisputed. Launching Zuffa Boxing took a massive effort from what is a conglomerate of giants of industry: Sella, Turki El Sheikh, Nick Khan of the WWE, and of course Dana White, who's supposed to be this amazing promoter. We'll see how amazing he is when he has to promote boxing.
He's got all the ingredients to make a lasagna, but careful that he doesn't end up with a baked ziti instead.
Because he's got all the ingredients, but it doesn't mean nothing if you don't know how to put them together, if you don't know how to use them. When Ben Shalom started out on Boxer on Sky Sports, he had some good ingredients, but in the end, it didn't pan out.
And what you're telling me is that Dana White is not only a better promoter than him, but he's a better promoter than Eddie. We'll see about that.
Because now he's promoting some of the same unbeaten fighters that Eddie was promoting not that long ago. Let's see if Dana can actually do it better.